My ex believed his mom's lie that I cheated while pregnant with his child, then came to ruin my new life, so I taught him a lesson in court. My name is Amy, 33, female. 5 years ago, my entire life fell apart. Let me start from the beginning. I met my husband Jordan, 35, male, when I was on a trip to visit my friend Sarah, who lived in this beautiful little town. I remember it was the first week of July, and the weather was just perfect. Sarah had been bugging me for ages to come and stay with her, and I finally decided to take her up on the offer. Little did I know that this trip would change my life forever. Jordan lived right next door to Sarah's place. On my first day there, I was sitting on Sarah's porch, sipping iced tea and enjoying the sunset, when I saw him for the first time. He was out watering his plants, looking all calm and content. We made eye contact, and I swear I felt something shift inside me. You know that feeling when you just know something special is about to happen? That's what it was like. Sarah noticed my interest and told me that Jordan was a great guy but had been single for a while. She suggested I say hi the next time I saw him, which I did the very next day. I was on my way to grab a coffee, and there he was, sitting on his porch reading a book. I mustered up the courage to introduce myself, and we ended up chatting for almost an hour. We talked about everything from our favorite books to our love for hiking. It was so easy to talk to him, like we had known each other for years. As my trip was coming to an end, I started feeling sad about leaving. On my last night there, Jordan and I went out for dinner. It was nothing fancy, just a cozy little restaurant by the lake, but it was perfect. We talked about our lives, our dreams, and what we wanted for the future. When he dropped me off at Sarah's place, we shared our first kiss. It was like something out of a movie, fireworks, butterflies, the whole shebang. After I got back home, we kept in touch through calls and texts. It wasn't long before we were spending hours on the phone every night, talking about everything under the sun. We decided to give long distance a shot, and for the next few months, we made it work. We visited each other as often as we could. He came to see me in my city, and I went back to visit him whenever I could. Those weekends together were the highlight of my life at the time. As time went on, the distance started to become more and more challenging. We were both miserable whenever we had to say goodbye, and it was getting harder to be apart. So, after about a year of long distance, I started looking for jobs in his city. I was lucky enough to find a great opportunity, and I decided to take the plunge and move there. The one thing in our relationship that I felt was weird was his relationship with his mother, Pam, 57, female. Now, here is the thing about Pam and Jordan's relationship: they are very close. Jordan is a typical mama's boy, and Pam is one of those moms who don't think that anyone is good enough for their son. Her relationship with Jordan sometimes made me feel like the third wheel in our own relationship. One of the first instances that made me realize how close they were was when I had just moved in with Jordan. We had just settled into our new apartment and were still getting things sorted out. One evening, Pam showed up unannounced. She had a key to the place, which I didn't know she had, and walked in while we were having dinner. It was a bit awkward, to say the least. She started rearranging things in the kitchen, telling us how she thought it should be organized. I tried to laugh it off, thinking she was just being helpful, but it felt like she was trying to impose her way of doing things on us. Pam's opinions often seemed to carry more weight than mine. I remember when we were choosing furniture for our place. We found a beautiful couch that we both loved, but when Pam saw it, she made a face and said it wasn't practical and that we should get something else. Jordan agreed with her, and we ended up getting a different couch, one that Pam liked but I really didn't care for. It was frustrating because I felt like my opinions and preferences were being overshadowed by hers. After Jordan proposed, Pam almost became hostile towards me. While I was planning my wedding, she tried to take over and control everything, but I stood firm and was able to have the wedding of my dreams. Let me tell you, it was not easy. Pam was like a hurricane sweeping through every aspect of our wedding plans, and I had to be the sturdy rock that stood in her way. Right after we announced our engagement, Pam started calling me every day with suggestions and ideas for the wedding. At first, I thought she was just being helpful, but it quickly became clear that she wanted to be in charge of the whole thing. She would say things like, "You should go with a traditional church wedding, Amy. It's what our family expects." Now, Jordan and I had already decided we wanted an outdoor ceremony by a lake, surrounded by nature. It was something that meant a lot to both of us, but Pam wasn't having it. She even went as far as to book a church and arrange a meeting with the pastor without consulting us. Then there was the issue with the dress. I had found the perfect dress, a simple, elegant gown that made me feel like a princess. But when Pam saw it, she wrinkled her nose and said, "Oh, that's nice, but don't you think it's a bit plain? You should go for something more extravagant, like a ball gown." She actually took me to another bridal shop and tried to get me to buy a huge, puffy dress that looked like it came straight out of a fairy tale. It wasn't me at all, and I had to firmly tell her that I was sticking with my choice. She looked so disappointed, but I wasn't going to let her guilt me into changing my mind. On the day of the wedding, Pam tried to take over the coordination of everything. She was telling the photographer where to set up, instructing the band on what to play, and even trying to rearrange the decorations. At one point, I had to take her aside and politely but firmly tell her that we had everything under control and that she should just relax and enjoy the day. It was tough, but I was determined to make sure that our wedding reflected who we were as a couple, not her vision. About a year after the wedding, Pam lost her job. She was working as a manager at a local store, and unfortunately, the store shut down. It was a tough time for her, and she was pretty shaken up. Jordan and I talked it over and agreed that until she could find another job, we would help her out with her rent. Pam's place wasn't too far from us, so it made sense to help her out rather than have her stress about finances on top of everything else. Pam started looking for a new job, but she kept complaining that it was hard to find one because of her age. She said no one wants to hire someone in their late 50s, they all want young people. At first, I felt really bad for her and tried to be as supportive as possible. I even helped her update her resume and coached her on how to answer interview questions. But after a few weeks, I started to notice a pattern. Every time she went for an interview, she would come back with a story about how the interviewer didn't seem to like her or how the job wasn't a good fit because the company seemed too disorganized. She would say things like, "I can't believe how unprofessional these people are," or "I don't want to work for a place that doesn't have its act together." It began to feel like she was finding excuses not to take any job that came her way. A year passed, and Pam still hadn't been able to get a job. We were still continuing to pay her rent, and it was starting to really take a toll on our finances. But then things changed in a big way. I found out I was pregnant. It was the happiest day of my life. I had always wanted to be a mother, and knowing that I was going to have a baby made everything seem brighter. Jordan and I were over the moon with excitement, and we started preparing for our little one's arrival right away. When I was about 8 months pregnant, I decided it was time to take my maternity leave. I worked in sales, and while I still received my basic salary during my leave, my main source of income was from commissions, which stopped as soon as I went on leave. This meant our income took a significant hit, and things got a lot tighter financially. We were managing, but it was clear we couldn't keep up with paying Pam's rent much longer without seriously compromising our own financial stability. As my due date approached, the stress of our financial situation started to weigh heavily on me. I was supposed to be focusing on preparing for the baby and enjoying the special time, but instead I was constantly worrying about money. We had savings, but they were dwindling fast, and we needed to make sure we had enough to cover any unexpected expenses that might come up with the baby. We agreed that we needed to have a serious talk with Pam and let her know that we couldn't continue to pay her rent. We decided to have the conversation the next day. Pam came over for lunch, and after we finished eating, we sat down with her in the living room. I was so nervous, my heart was pounding in my chest. Jordan started by explaining our situation, how my income had decreased significantly and how we were struggling to make ends meet. Pam listened quietly, but I could see her expression darken as she realized where the conversation was headed. When we told her that we wouldn't be able to pay her rent anymore, she got very upset. She said, "How am I supposed to survive without your help? I've been trying to find a job, but no one wants to hire someone my age." I felt bad for her, but I also knew that we had to prioritize our own family's needs, especially with a baby on the way. I tried to stay calm and explain that we had been supporting her for over a year and that we just couldn't afford it anymore. I suggested she look into other options, like finding a roommate to share the rent or even moving into a more affordable place. Pam was not happy about it. She said she couldn't possibly live with a stranger and that moving would be too much for her to handle. The conversation was tough, and it didn't end on a good note. Pam left in a huff, and I felt terrible. Less than a week later, Pam came to visit us again, and this time she didn't say anything about the rent. I thought we had moved past the whole issue. She seemed calm, and we had a nice chat about the baby and other lighthearted topics. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was relieved that things seemed to be getting better. But then, after she left, something strange happened. Jordan got a call from her, and I could see his face tense up as he listened. He didn't say much, just a few ahas and "Okay, I'll be there soon." Less than 5 minutes later, he grabbed his keys and told me he had to go out for a bit. I assumed he was going to his mother's place, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe she needed help with something, I thought. Hours passed, and Jordan still wasn't back. I started to get worried and tried calling him, but he didn't pick up. I sent him a few texts asking where he was and if everything was okay. All he responded with was a short message saying he wouldn't be home that night and that he'd explain everything later. My heart sank. I couldn't understand why he wasn't coming home or what could be so important that he needed to stay out all night. The next day, I had an important prenatal appointment. Jordan was supposed to accompany me, but he didn't show up, so I went alone. Everything went fine at the appointment, and I was looking forward to sharing the updates with him. But when I got back home, I was greeted by a shocking sight. My stuff was on the porch, clothes, books, everything. There was a note taped to the door from Jordan. It said he knew I'd cheated and that he wasn't the father of the baby. My heart sank, and I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I tried to get inside, but the locks had been changed. How had he managed to do all this so quickly? It was like my world had turned upside down in an instant. I didn't know where to go, so I went to my friend Sarah's house. She lived right next to us, and I hoped she could help me figure out what to do. When I knocked on her door, she took one look at me and knew something was terribly wrong. She let me in, and as soon as I started telling her what had happened, she was just as shocked as I was. Sarah said she had heard some commotion earlier but hadn't paid much attention to it. She had no idea what was going on either. I tried calling Jordan, but he didn't pick up. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. Then, out of nowhere, I received a text message from Jordan. It was a picture of me standing at our front door with a man. I was smiling, and the guy was handing me something. I remember this guy. He was a colleague who had come over a few times to get my signature on some work documents. Nothing inappropriate had happened, he was just a coworker. Who could have taken this photo? I was so confused and hurt. I texted Jordan, trying to explain that the man in the picture was just a colleague from the office and that nothing had happened between us. But Jordan didn't believe me. He just replied saying he wanted a divorce and that he couldn't trust me anymore. It felt like a dagger to the heart. I couldn't believe it took so little to destroy our relationship. Trust me, I tried my best to explain everything and reassure him, but it was like he had already made up his mind. Something had changed in him, and he wasn't ready to listen to me at all. A few weeks later, I was still living at Sarah's house. I was trying to keep myself together, but it was hard with all the stress and uncertainty hanging over me. I did make plans to move back to my parents' place for a while to get some stability, but I couldn't travel right now because of how far along I was in my pregnancy. It just wasn't safe for me or the baby. I needed help, so I asked my mom to come and stay with me. She flew in the next day, and it was such a relief to have her by my side during this difficult time. My mom helped me find a small apartment nearby. It wasn't much, but it was a place where I could start over. I used what little money I had saved to sign the lease, and my parents generously loaned me some money to help with the baby's expenses. They have been my rock through all of this, and I couldn't have made it without them. It was a humbling experience relying on my parents like this, but I was grateful for their support. I had to deliver my baby without my husband. My mom was there, but I still felt so alone. After a month, I was still trying to reach out to Jordan, texting him, sending him photos of our baby boy, and doing everything I could to make him believe that he was the father. I kept telling him that we could get a paternity test and that all I needed was a sample of his hair, but he wasn't even willing to try that. It was like he had completely shut me out. Then, one day out of the blue, he sent me divorce papers. I was furious and heartbroken at the same time. I didn't know what to do, I felt so helpless and abandoned. I didn't have any other option but to hire a lawyer. I thought, if Jordan doesn't want to accept his son, then fine, we don't need him. I was determined to move forward for the sake of my son. The lawyer was very supportive and helped me navigate the whole process. I decided to include a clause in the divorce papers stating that Jordan was relinquishing his rights as a father. I was shocked when he happily signed the papers without any objection. It was like he didn't even care. Within a few months, we were divorced. Raising my son alone was really tough. There were sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and moments when I just felt completely overwhelmed. If it wasn't for my mom, who actually came to help out with the baby, my dad, who helped financially, and my friends, who helped me stay sane through it all, I would have lost my mind. My mom stayed with me for several months, helping with everything from feeding to midnight cuddles. She was my rock, always there to pick me up when I was feeling down and to remind me that I wasn't alone in this journey. My dad was amazing too. He provided financial support, which was a huge relief. Being a single parent with a newborn and trying to make ends meet was incredibly stressful, but knowing that my dad had my back made it a bit easier to breathe. My friends, especially Sarah, were my lifeline. They checked in on me, brought meals, took me out for coffee just to get me out of the house. They kept me grounded and gave me the strength to keep going, even though things got really tough. However, despite all the support, I became deeply depressed when I found out that Jordan was already getting married. Married? Yes, within a year of us separating, he was tying the knot with someone else. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't help but think that he was with this new girl while he was still married to me. It all started to make sense why he was so unwilling to listen to me when I tried to explain the truth about the situation with our baby. He just wanted a way out of our marriage so he could walk out on me and our child. It took me a while, but I finally managed to pick up the pieces of my life after everything fell apart. After Jordan kicked me out and filed for divorce, I heavily relied on my parents and friends for support. They helped me find a small apartment where I could settle in with my newborn son. Financially, things were tough at first. I had to get back to work soon after giving birth, despite the challenges of being a single mom. My parents helped out with child care, and gradually I was able to stabilize our situation. It was hard juggling work and motherhood, but every smile from my son made it all worth it. A few years down the line, I attended a work conference where I met Austin, 33, male. We hit it off instantly, but I was cautious after everything I had been through. He was patient and understanding, never pushing me to open up before I was ready. We started spending more time together, and before I knew it, I was falling for him deeply. Austin was different from anyone I had ever known. He was supportive of my past and was genuinely interested in building a future together. He treated my son as his own, which meant the world to me. After dating for a while, we decided to take the next step. Last year, we got married at a beautiful outdoor ceremony hosted at a friend's property. It was an intimate affair with close friends and family. Walking down the aisle with my son beside me and Austin waiting at the end was a moment I'll cherish forever. It felt like we had finally become the happy family I'd always dreamed of. Since then, life has been good to us. Austin and I continue to support each other through thick and thin. He's been a wonderful father figure to my son, and seeing them bond melts my heart every day. We've created a loving, stable home where my son can thrive, and I couldn't be more grateful. Last month, out of the blue, I received a text from Jordan. Honestly, seeing his name pop up on my phone brought back a flood of emotions, anger, hurt, and a touch of curiosity. I didn't respond and immediately blocked his number. I thought that would be the end of it, but then things took an unexpected turn. A few days later, I heard a knock on my door. To my shock, there stood Jordan. I hadn't told him where I lived, so I had no idea how he found me. He asked to talk, saying he just wanted a few minutes of my time. I was hesitant, but eventually I let him in, setting a strict time limit. Jordan started by saying he wanted to see our son and be a family again. My initial reaction was disbelief. After everything that happened, being accused of cheating, getting kicked out, and then the divorce, it was a lot to process. I was shocked and honestly pretty angry. I reminded him of everything he put me through, accusing me of cheating, kicking me out, and then divorcing me. I told him our son already has a father, my husband Austin, who legally adopted him after we got married. Jordan didn't take this well at all. He argued that Austin is just a stepdad and not our son's real father. Things got heated, and I had to remind him that he willingly signed away his parental rights during our divorce. He got even angrier and refused to leave, insisting on meeting our son. I felt so cornered that I threatened to call the police if he didn't go. Eventually, he left after banging on the door for a while. Since then, Jordan has been bombarding me, my mom, and my friends with calls and messages. I'm feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to handle this situation. It's like he's trying to force his way back into our lives after abandoning us. Has anyone here been through something similar? Any advice on how to handle Jordan's persistence without putting my family's peace at risk would be greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance for your help. After Jordan showed up unannounced and started harassing us, I decided to seek legal advice. I contacted a lawyer and explained the whole situation to her. She assured me that legally, Jordan has no rights to my son. She explained that because my husband Austin legally adopted my son after we got married, Jordan's rights as a biological father were effectively terminated when he willingly signed away his parental rights during our divorce. It was a huge relief to hear this from a legal professional. She also advised me on steps I could take if Jordan continued to harass us. She said we could pursue legal actions such as getting a restraining order or taking other measures to ensure our safety and peace of mind. Armed with this information, I feel more confident about handling the situation. I know now that legally, my family is protected, and I don't have to entertain Jordan's attempts to disrupt our lives. After I told Austin about it, he was understandably concerned and told me never to open the door if Jordan came by again. He's worried about Jordan's behavior, and honestly, so my curiosity got the better of me though, and I did a bit of social media digging. Turns out Jordan is divorced now. I'm not surprised, to be honest. Starting a new relationship on the back of another one rarely ends well. Since that incident, Jordan hasn't stopped with the texts and calls. It's all he's been doing, constantly trying to reach out to us. It's frustrating and unsettling, but for now, it's just been limited to that. I'm keeping Austin informed about everything, and he's been really supportive. We're both on the same page about not engaging with Jordan and prioritizing our safety and peace of mind. If Jordan escalates things further or tries anything else, I'm prepared to take legal action to protect my family. I'm feeling really shaken right now. I was at the park with my son earlier today, just enjoying some time outdoors, and then out of nowhere, Jordan showed up. I couldn't believe it at first. I froze for a moment, not sure how to react. Jordan approached us and tried to talk to my son. I immediately stepped between them, shielding my son from Jordan. I told him firmly to leave us alone and that he had no right to be here or to approach my son. Jordan was persistent though. He started saying things like how he wanted to see his son and be a family again. It was incredibly unsettling to hear him talk like that after everything that's happened. I could feel my heart racing, and I was scared about what he might do next. I tried hard to stay calm but firm. I told him that if he didn't leave immediately, I would call the police. I could see the shock and anger on his face, but I didn't back down. My priority was protecting my son and ensuring our safety. After what felt like an eternity, he finally backed off. He muttered something under his breath and walked away, but he kept looking back at us as he left the park. I stayed there for a while, just trying to process what had happened and calm my nerves. When I got home, I immediately called Austin and told him everything. He was furious and worried, but he reassured me that we would take whatever steps necessary to keep us safe. He insisted that I should have called the police right then and there, but I was so caught off guard that I didn't think of that. Now I'm feeling scared and anxious about what might happen next. Jordan's behavior is becoming more unpredictable and aggressive, and I don't know how to handle it. I'm seriously considering getting a restraining order to protect my son and myself from any further encounters. It's been a roller coaster, but I think things might finally be settling down. After the incident at the park where Jordan showed up unexpectedly, I realized I couldn't keep living in fear of him. So I made a decision. I sent him a firm text message and told him that if he wanted to see his son, he needed to get a lawyer and we could discuss things through legal channels. I didn't want any more surprises or confrontations. I also made sure to have my lawyer with me when we met. Austin was there too, standing by my side. It was important to have that support. When Jordan and his lawyer arrived, we had a serious discussion. My lawyer clearly laid out the situation. Jordan had no legal rights to my son. She made it clear that any further attempts to contact me or my son would result in legal action, including involving the police if necessary. I think the formality of the meeting and the strong stance from my lawyer might have finally made Jordan realize the seriousness of the situation. Since then, he hasn't tried to contact me again. It's been quiet, and for that, I'm incredibly relieved. Of course, I'm still cautious. I don't know if this saga with Jordan has truly ended or if he might try something else in the future. But for now, I'm taking it day by day and focusing on moving forward with my family, Austin and my son. I want to thank you all for your support throughout this challenging time. Your advice and encouragement have meant the world to me.